Good evening, everyone. How are we going? Good turnout. Very good turnout. Welcome to the May 2022 AEVA Queensland branch meeting. All right. Unfortunately, tonight, one of our speakers got sick yesterday, and he will probably be in next month. So it'll be maybe a little bit shorter than normal, but still plenty to get through. I'll do my normal chat. Wayne will speak about his lovely Polestar 2, and Nathan will have a chat about some EV stuff. I know. Okay, so updates to EV infrastructure. My normal stuff that I start with. So I just wanted to run through the status of some of the stuff in Brisbane. So the free charges, the free DC fast chargers, and what's happening with them. So the Kelvin Grove Stadium that's behind the parking gate, that's still online, but you have to pay for parking. I think it's $5 for an hour, but it's free to charge. This one's at the Kelvin Grove Library. Was free when it's online, but it's offline, has been for a few months. Gardens Point is now online, but it's for some reason charging at 23 kilowatts or something like that instead of 50. I'm not sure what's happening there. And there was a sign saying the St. Lucia UQ one was coming online last month, but they have installed a new AC box there. So there is some charging, but yeah, good luck trying to get on that when it's at a uni and some person just parks there for 8 hours a day and uses that one. So just a little bit of an update on the free stuff. Just a quick refresh on the pricing. So the ChargeFox Queensland Electric Superhighway charges are now 30 cents. The Gold Coast City Council ones are 30 cents, and the EV Networks 50 kilowatts are 40 cents. And the 350s are both ChargeFox and EV are 60 cents. However, there is no ChargeFox 350s because Toombul, you might have heard on the news tonight that it's gone. It's not recovering at all. So I don't know what they're going to do with the site, but it's not going to be a shopping centre. So that wipes out a lot of charges that we had there. So some cheap Tesla superchargers coming up on eBay soon. Ampol is rolling out their, as part of the Future Fuels Funds, rolling out their chargers. They've actually got on their website where they're doing some of the installs around the country, but they don't have any pricing yet. So maybe next month, if they've opened up a site, I'll let you know about that. Yeah, here's the Toombul stuff. The free one, AC ones downstairs, the Tesla superchargers and the 350s upstairs. So to my knowledge, there's no 350s from ChargeFox in Queensland other than those ones. So bit of a shame. This is the Brisbane North side. We've got two new things have come up on PlugShare. Ampol at Castledine. That's a pretty well-known petrol station. As you just go past Beams Road and then you're going down, it used to be a Caltex, it's an Ampol now, just before you get through to Castledine up here. That's going to have a new Ampol 150 kilowatt charger there. And they're putting in 120 chargers nationwide by 18 months' time. So that's pretty good, 150 kilowatt chargers, that'll handle that. Most cars will max out at that. Brookside Shopping Centre. We've had the previous months, I've shown you the Sunnybank and Callumvale shopping centres have had those Alanga 50 kilowatt and 49 and the AC ones. And Brookside's getting one as well. So just, have I put a picture on of that? No, I haven't. There's the Callumvale and Sunnybank ones. I've mentioned those in previous months, but I did mention last month that EV Networks are bringing out the one at Jindalee Home Super Centre, and conveniently located right next to First Choice. So that's very handy. I like that. Still waiting to find out where the one at Birkdale's going, but I have it reliably informed there is one going into Birkdale. Okay, that's it for EV infrastructure. Just some of the events. We actually did quite a lot of events in the past month. Well, I attended a lot of events anyway. I'm sure a lot of you did. So we did the Brisbane EV experience that was run by Solar Citizens, and that was quite a fun day. Kind of mixed weather, rained for a little bit, but not too bad. That was on the 23rd of April, and that was quite a good attendance. Yeah, as you can see, there was a lot of the people who come to these meetings went to that one. We had the Toowoomba AEVA branch did a run to the Oakey Air Museum. So that's the Army Air Museum. So not the Air Force, but the Army Air Museum. And this is my son, a bit of a young fella still. But there's a Black Hawk, and we had a, what's that one? Twin blade thing. Chinook, that's the one, thank you. And you can actually walk inside the Chinook and sit down, and it's pretty cool, actually. But they had a lot of, it was like a history thing, so they had like very early pre-World War type stuff, but they're just like balsa wood and material, and then they went through, you know, but the blades on these things, you don't realise, but they're like 60 centimetres wide or something. They're just insane when you're actually right next to them. But yeah, that was fun. With Les, we had a couple of cars out at this thing. Les said it was about 9,000 people went to this Planes, Trains and Autos. But it wasn't really an EV event, but Les went along, represent. Yep. I did my monthly EV catch-up at the Pimpamar Sports Hub, where they've got 3 75 kilowatt chargers there. But it was belting down. And we decided just to pop down to the Coomera Westfield, and we went and had a cup of coffee and messed about. Have you got you want to flick the thing? There was about 8 or 9 of us there across the night. So I just wanted to show you some of the silliness that we get up to. Like, these things aren't serious, so yeah, here's a picture of this scooter. It's a folding scooter, so it's actually quite tiny, but you've got to put the handlebars are actually behind your butt, so it's a bit weird. So I'm just going to show you him riding it. So I can see that. But you got to lean backwards while going forward, so I think it's a bit off-putting, but yeah, that's the owner, and then we had a couple of the guys try that hadn't ever used it before, and they weren't as successful as that. So I didn't have a go. I'm not that silly. Then we decided, just before we left, that someone reminded me that you can program the Model 3 now to do what the Model X could do, a bit of a dance and stuff like that. But I thought, well, all 4 of you are there. Why don't you just close your doors to activate it, but close them all at the same time? And yeah, we do dumb stuff like this all the time, so it's good fun. Not quite synced, but maybe we'll do that at Cleveland. I wonder how many we can get at Cleveland. Do like 20 or 30 at once. Maybe it's lame. It's too lame, is it? Is it lame, or is it all right? Lame. But you know, you can like, I don't know how many of you know that those cars did that, but you can actually program your own song, like what song you want, and program all the lights to do what you want. So, you know, it's gimmicky, but you know, I think that's pretty cool as well. Yeah. All right. So coming up, most of you who are members would have got a reminder about the national having an extraordinary general meeting to ratify the constitution to change business model. So that's on the 22nd of May, 7 p.m. There is a Tesla Model 3 boot camp for anyone interested in that. Toka are having that, I think, on the 28th. So if you're interested in doing that at all, it's down at Mount Cotton, yep, at the driver training centre there. Is it the 28th? Yeah. Or 29th? It's one of those. It's the weekend after, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, go for it, mate, yeah.
So, because I kind of get involved in that stuff too. So it's down at Mount Cotton. It's a fairly long day piece. It's kind of like, you know, 9 till 3. It's going to go through every aspect. So basically the concept is that we've read the user manual, so you don't have to, and we're going to take you through each of the aspects, and it's going to be sort of streamed, and individuals will walk around certain points and just take you through how to deal with, you know, service elements, and you know, how to use the lights, and how to play with some of the you know, Easter eggs in games. Anyway, so it's great for new users, or those, if you know, who might be interested in a Model 3 in the next little while, or even a Model Y in the near future. That'll all be very similar, and to take them through that journey and understand all the real nitty gritty with, I don't know, there's going to be like 20 or 30 current users, owners, who will know more than you'll ever need to know.
Oh, thanks, mate. Okay, I'm pretty sure we'll make sure that that's on the Facebook group for anyone who's interested in that. The up north at Yeppoon and Gladstone, they're doing their EV stuff with the land care and councils. I'm pretty much sure I'm going to go to Noosa EV Expo, and I have asked for a poll of people who's going. I'm asking for a poll of who's interested in going to the RACQ Motorfest or versus the Noosa EV Expo, just so maybe we can get a bit of representation at both. Have been contacted by both to attend, so they are keen for us to be there. So RNA, I'm pretty sure. RNA Showgrounds. Noosa, they're closing the road in Noosa and having, yeah, that has traditionally been more heavily focused on bikes and scooters and that type of e-mobility, but we have helped bring the EVs along to those events as well. So there's going to be talks and that type of thing as well. So yeah, it is a long day though. So I think it starts at 10 o'clock. That means we probably leave here before 8 o'clock if you're interested in going up. Just let me know if you are. Electric Dreams at the RNA Showgrounds, that's a large EV event, like a formal EV event where they get all the different manufacturers and not just the cars, but, you know, like the hydrofoil boards and all that type of stuff. So that's a serious, really serious formal type of show because it's expensive to get the sites there. So those people are really looking to push their products, but not strictly cars, but all e-mobility. Once again, they're doing the national conference in ACT in August. There's the EV Envirotech Day in August, and 11th of September, the big one for us, I'm going to try and push to get 100 EVs there. We got 80 something last time. So hopefully you can join us down there. Just for 3-4 hours and make that a show of force of how much EVs are coming along, especially in Queensland. What's that? Yeah, if you're happy to volunteer, let us know. Like it's not too strenuous. Pretty relaxed day, but many hands make light work, of course. We'll go next, Les. I think that's just about it. General EV news. Okay, just a couple of snippets I've caught since last month. Tritium have signed a deal with BP to buy just under 1,000 chargers, not for Australia, but for UK, Australia and New Zealand. So that's, once again, that's showing that there is an interest in EV uptake, even from the petrol side of the businesses. The 38 kilowatt hour Ionic, the FEV and hybrid have been discontinued, and the Ionic name badge going forward will just be for battery only. A $500 million pledge from Labor will double the Future Fuels Fund funding, and that's 200. This is not political, but that's double just what the Liberals are currently putting. And the WA government is giving 36.5 million as their incentive to residents. We have 3,000 and theirs is 3,500, you know, just to go one better, I guess. But they're bringing in a distance-based road user charge from 2027. Ugh. Boo. Yeah. You've got to make their money back somehow, right? What's that, mate?
This is up to 70,000. So
yeah, up to 70,000. So that, yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I was going to make a point of that the Model 3 does fall under the 70,000, unlike the 58,000 cap that we have here. So even more wait times for Tesla Model 3s in Australia, because yeah, I'm sure that's looking even better.
he's got a bigger ship.
Well, what are they? 65, I think. Did you ever find out if that is on-road costs included, or is it the pre-on-road? Pre-on-road, okay.
Typical price plus GST.
Yeah.
Is the value I
Yeah.
understand. They could change that or
They don't necessarily specify, I don't think, in anything I saw. Yeah. All right, that's enough out of me. Wayne's here with his Polestar 2, beautiful looking car. Come and give us a bit of a talk about it, mate. We're all a bit jealous at the moment, so far away.
All right, hi, Wayne. Yep, this is mine. It's the long-range single-motor version. So that didn't last long, did it? Testing. It's the long-range single-motor version. So that's 78 kilowatt-hour battery, 170 kilowatt motor. Single motor, as I said. This one's got the Pilot and the Plus packs, and thankfully it's got the full Pilot pack with the Matrix lights, which unfortunately you don't get if you're going to order one now, because they've run out of chips. I've had it for 2.5 weeks. I've done about 800 Ks in it so far, and I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic car. It was worth the wait. I waited 3 months for it. Which looking at the waiting times for cars now actually doesn't seem that long, but it felt like a lifetime between placing the order and actually picking up the car. One of the reasons for getting that particular car, I wanted something I can tow with. I've got a camper trailer.
Excuse me, mate. Sorry. Technical problem.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, I've got a camper trailer and I want to use that for towing, but unfortunately Polestar forgot to put the tow bar on it, or rather didn't forget, they just haven't put it on yet. So I'm still waiting for that, and I'm still harassing them every day to get the tow bar on. They've told me it arrived in Queensland this week, and I'm just waiting for the call from the installer to actually fit it. I guess you probably had a look at the car. You can see it's nice and shiny at the moment, but being black, it definitely won't stay that way. But I find I picked this car because it looks like a car. It looks like a sedan or a hatchback, and it's not an SUV. And no offense to the Tesla owners in the crowd, but it's not a Tesla either. So that was a plus for me. I don't know what else I can say about it. It's a really nice car to drive. It's very smooth. Efficiency, I've been averaging just over 17 kilowatt hours per 100, which would make it about 450, 460 on a full charge. They claim 540, but it's a long way short of that, unless you're driving around at 35 k's an hour or something anyway.
What's the peak charging speed?
150 kilowatts. I think it might be 155. Is it okay? The best I've seen, because I've only charged it a couple of times anyway, in that 800 k's was 137 up at the EV charger at Cutchin Creek.
Any questions?
The obvious question, all the ice addicts and art, what range has it got?
Yeah, so I think it will do about 450, 460 actual. The Polestar, the spec says 540, but it's nowhere near that. But about 450, 460. Any other questions?
Check 1, 2. Oh, yeah, it's working. This is the idea. Throw the box around. You made the choice for the Polestar, and I wanted to give a bit of an idea of what else you had to look at. What other vehicles you shop, what else did you drive, and what were the attributes of the Polestar 2 that made you go that way?
So I did have a look at the Ioniq 5, but like a lot of other people, I put a reservation on but didn't get anywhere near an actual order. I took an XC40 recharge for a drive, which I actually really liked, but as I mentioned, it's a hatchback rather than an SUV, and that was the driver for that. The thing about the Polestar is, I think, for me at least, and people might disagree, but I think it's just a cool looking car, it's just a really nice car, and for the money, you might argue it's a little bit expensive, but not too much. But it's just a good car. It's got a decent spec with the packs I've put on it. Not the base spec isn't so much, but yeah, I think it's just a cool car.
What was the ballpark in what's cost with the spec that you've got there?
Well, when the tow bar's on there, that'll be just over 82. Yeah, and that's with the plus pack and pilot pack. And long range, yeah.
That's the towing.
1.5 tons.
Okay. Far away.
Where is it made?
Any other questions?
China. If you look at all the Polestar material, they're a Swedish company. Head office is Gothenburg. Very European. The indicator stalks on the left, but it's made in China.
So about 800 k's now, what have you found that you would like to have changed or had different? Is there anything that you're like, this was better?
The one thing that actually I really don't like is what they call the pilot assist, which is like the lane keeping. It's very jittery. Even on the highway, it works on the highway, but it can be jittery. But on a 60k road, you feel like you're fighting it all the time. So I tend to leave that off. The adaptive cruise control is very good, but the pilot assist lane keep really isn't.
Did you have problems with the software? We have to XC40, we have to restart the software sometimes?
Not yet. No, I haven't done yet. Actually, that's a slight lie. I had one issue where the LTE, the 4G, didn't connect. And I did a journey, I restarted it, and it still didn't connect. I went and had a cup of coffee, came back, and it was fine. That's the only issue I've had with software.
In updates, fix the LTE problems with us?
I haven't had an update yet. It came with version 2.0, so I haven't had an update yet, but 2.1 is just around the corner.
We've got a question, advantages compared to the Tesla Model 3?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, to be honest. I've never actually driven a Model 3. I've sat in a couple, but never actually driven one. But I think one of the things for me is that I don't really like the look of a Model 3. I think this is a nice looking car, a Model 3. I know I can't make a quick getaway either, can I? It's personal preference, right? Mm.
Driving a Model 3 and Pop and I are Polestar as well. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law are both mates have Model 3s up in Townsville.
Just talk, if you're talking to them.
And I had the privilege of sitting in line for quite some time in Model 3 COVID tests. And I found the roof really quite hot there, but I don't have that issue. The Polestar, noise, cabin noise is another big difference I find between the cars, but unlike you, I'm all about a traditional car and having a dash, having control my volume, opening my gloves is a big thing to me.
Absolutely, regular buttons in there, yeah. There's the nice big screen in there for the entertainment and the maps, but it's regular buttons for everything else.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mostly the engine is much better on the Polestar too, and the Android Auto built-in system is really good if you're in the Android ecosystem. Having Google Maps in the dash,
Yeah.
a lot of cars have really good social cockpit setups in them, but that's what they built in tracking maps, whereas having Google Maps in the dash is really, really good.
Yeah, being a bit of a nerd and a Google fanboy, that was another reason for picking on this car. Yeah.
Does it green?
You can turn it on and off. So I
Turn it off and stops.
yeah, so I have it switched off and pure one pedal drive.
Francisco's just about one pedal drive. Have we got any other questions?
Can you change regeneration levels?
Yes.
Yes, there are three. It's three, isn't it? It's
There's one pedal drive strong, and there's one pedal drive weak, and then it's just coasting.
yeah.
So it's quite strong and strong. I only like it on weak because it ventilates the engine braking and the compression ice car. I prefer coasting plus.
Yeah, I leave it on strong all the time, and it is a different way of driving, but I've got used to it pretty quickly, and yeah, and you just find if you're coming to the lights or whatever, you can just feather the accelerator if you need to move a little bit further, but it's quite easy to drive that way.
Got the mic? There we go. It's behind you.
What's the battery warranty?
It is 8 years, 160,000 kilometres.
5 years, 3 servicing.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
yeah. No idea yet. This is one of the issues that we are finding with Polestar is that they've come here, they've brought some cars, they're selling some cars, they're not organised yet. So the early adopters, like there's a couple of us in the room, we're kind of putting up with it because it's a great car. But I think by the time the model year 23 cars come around in about October this year, they really need to have got their act together because they've got a lot wrong, in all honesty. And one of the things is at the moment there are no service centres. There actually are no full-time staff in Brisbane for Polestar. The handover staff are all contractors.
We've had a tech visit already, and there's someone going in Sydney, hopefully they're taking
Yeah. So that is a concern at the moment. I'm sure they'll get there eventually, and hopefully before either something goes wrong or it's due a service.
All right. Grab the box, bud.
I was going to say, so they go the Tesla model where you buy, you can go to a dealer, you have to buy it online, is it?
It's all online, so buy it online. Everything was, email and what have you. It was the deliveries in Brisbane handled by Auto Nexus out at Eagle Farm. At the moment, Polestar are setting up their own space in the valley, but all online.
How much is, you're getting a question, how much is
Insurance was a few dollars over $1,000, so not too bad. That's with Commonwealth. I did see some wild quotes of like $3,500 from I think that was RACQ actually, but yeah.
I find until they have the model data as well, like it's just a random number.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure the Model 3 would have gone up over time because it would have started probably under 1,000, I would have thought, and then it's probably way higher than that now. Just because it's random RNG for sure. All right, is there any other questions? I'm sure Wayne's happy to answer anything when you're over at the car.
I'll be around.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for bringing it in, Wayne. Really appreciate that. You're up, bud.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the Polestar is really exciting. I took some folks in Sydney to go and do a test drive in it, and one of the things I noticed really a lot about the Polestar, having had a Tesla for 3 years and have a couple of others, is just how solid it is. Like, it's solid. The doors, you can kind of feel the door in total from skin to trim, internal trim. It feels like it's a foot deep, right? It feels very, and same with big consoles and all that sort of stuff. So you really feel cosseted. You're in a cocoon, and very, very different to the kind of the sparseness of the Tesla and others. So that's cool. Pop across there, Les. So tonight, in my typical kind of slot, sorry I missed last session, thought I'd bring to you a little bit of an update around what we've been buying in Australia over the past 4 months of this year. I've asked the question of where have all the low-cost EVs gone? Or where are all the low-cost EVs? Just to really take a sanity check of what is the cost of EVs in Australia and what it's going to look like for the next little while. And then availability. And so your experience of, the reason you have a Polestar, one, it's a great car. Two, you couldn't buy an Ioniq 5. And either way, you would have ended up with a great car. But ultimately, availability is going to be our problem. And so, I'll talk a little bit about what that means and what the reality is like, what we can do, what you can do, in your everything from your political choices this week to who you talk to and what you do around that. So those are the topics that I'm going to touch on tonight. If we go to the first slide, we'll just reflect on what happened last year. So I've kind of showed this before, but just to break it down in a bit of a podium, last year, the whole market, a little over 1 million cars, just on 20,000 cars, EVs sold, so 2% share. Tesla number one by a country mile, about 70% of the total EV volume was a Tesla, then the MG, and then the Kona. And if we flick over, we'll see what's happened for the first quarter of this year. So at the end of the quarter, we've got a rise in market share, which is great. So EVs continuing to get more popular against the rest of the market. One of the really interesting standouts is a car that probably no one's really thought of or thinking about, and maybe in this room, maybe you are. I've only ever seen a couple in the wild, but the Mercedes-Benz EQA was the second highest selling EV in Australia in the first quarter of this year. It's like 75 grand before on-roads. We'll talk about that, about where all the cheap EVs. But they're selling like hotcakes. They're outselling MG. They're outselling, Konas, Leafs, everything, right? So it's interesting. And if we go for the next month of April, they're still in that top three. And so in April, we've got a month where all the non-Teslas have started to, get their elbows out. And so we've got we've got the Volvo at the top and the Polestar second, and then the EQA third. But as you can see, April, first month of the quarter, there are no Teslas here yet. They never delivered cars in the first month. There was actually 52 sold in the month, and they will have been leftovers from the previous month. And so in the final quarter of the final month of the quarter is when you'll usually see the Tesla volume, and so then it'll balance it out. So in July we can talk about June, and we will look at the first half of the year, and it will kind of balance out, probably in the similar proportions that we've had before. Again, 2/3 of that number had a T on the bonnet. If we pull that all together and go to the next little one, the year-to-date picture looks at an increasing market share. I think is really important. And funny, a little dark horse has popped back in here. Actually, when you add all the numbers up and you can't see, well, how can they be here, but really Mr. Consistent, in the Kona. The Kona has come in just a whisker over the EQA for the year to date, the 4 months of the year volume. So that's what people are buying. And partly that's not just because that's what they want, but that's what they could get. And some of my folks that I work with at the moment, they're sort of asking me, okay, I want an EV for my fleet and councils and corporates and so on that I work with. What can I buy? I was like, oh, there's not much out there that you can actually get hold of right now. And it might actually be, maybe the XC40 is the only thing you could probably buy from a dealer at the moment this week. And next week you might not be able to. There was a time when I was saying you could go and get an MG. But that went for a time until I told one of my clients, well, probably MG's the thing that you'll be able to get hold of right now. And then they started ringing around all the local dealers and found that there were none left. And I went and did my own research and they'd all been gone. And, only 3 or 4 weeks before there were more than you could, I think dealers had 3, 4, 5, 6 in lot. So an interesting space. Any questions on sales? Yes, Jeff?
Being an engineer, I'm just wondering how the Kona, which was worse than the EQA, actually managed to get more.
So,
Bigger numbers that
yeah.
bigger than
The working is in the bottom of the slide. I can show you later. Trust me, there was about 30, 40 units between the two of them. This one sold about 10 units behind this one, so it sat there. But sold 90 more units than there to there, and so on and so forth. Kona for the win. For John, anyway. I'll show you the working later if you're really interested. I had the same question of my colleague. He said, how can that be? I was like, well, here's the working. Let's go to the next slide. And let's talk about EVs getting cheaper. So everybody says EVs are getting cheaper. Everybody says price parity by 2023 and a half. Come on, it's not going to happen. So, and part of the reason is that supply and demand situation. So if we have a look at the market now, bear with me. I hope you can all see that from there, and I'll walk you through it. What we've got is some of the main protagonists on a map, on a side over here, and this is before on-road, so kind of add somewhere in the order of about 8 to 10%, something like that, let's call it $5,000 to most vehicles. But in order to have everybody line ball, what we've got is all of the vehicles with before on-road costs positions on the side here. So got some of the cheaper ones, and these are in no particular order other than to be spotted on a map. And we've got the likes of, the Leaf starts down here at 50k, but it goes up to well into the 60s. Same with the Kona, starts mid-50s, goes well up into the mid-60s. And the EV6 starts at 70 and goes well up into the mid-80s. So there's a few there with a bit of a band in their range. And clearly, Polestar does as well, but I've just put one on the map as the entry-level model. So if you give it a flick for me, but things aren't staying that way. The MG's just gone up by about 3 or 4k. If we do give it another flick, we've just seen a price rise for both the Model 3 and the Polestar, and that's taking them to the mid-range from the bottom of that sector, around the 60k, to now 60 and a half, or 65,000k, $65,000. So you end up with, actually, things are starting to rise. And if we give it another quick flick, we've just lost the Ioniq Electric. So it hasn't just changed the name and gotten rid of the PHEV and the hybrid. They've actually gotten rid of and will not be selling the Ioniq Electric from after about September this year. Dead duck. So one of the cheapest, best entry level, 40-ish, 45, 50k cars is now finished. So now we've lost another one. And if we give it another little quick flick, so we've got this new BYD, and BYD is going to bring in really cheap cars. No, they're not. They're going to bring in really quite similar priced cars. So the Auto is a 45k car, plus, and what it ends up being, go again, is a not much cheaper. Oh, sort that out. Give it another flick. So it's a not much cheaper than the rest of them EV. Where are the PHEVs fit? Well, the PHEVs all fit around 50k plus or minus 5k. So there's not really a cheap EV from the plug-in hybrid space either. You're kind of like, oh, what are our choices here if you're looking at that entry level space for a new vehicle? We'll go again. And so we've also seen that we've got this Queensland incentive. Well, that comes in at about 58K. And unfortunately, unlike our friends in Western Australia, not ready to move though, they would have seen their incentives come on all the vehicles as far as the 70K mark. So we've got a diminishing group of vehicles to be drawing on now that we've got no Ioniq, and depending on which Kona you get and so on, you're right on the borderline. I'll go again, Les. So just in summary, what we're seeing is vehicles going up in price rather than coming down in price. Some of the lower entry models are removing from the market. Those new entry cheap models aren't that cheap, and FEBs don't really give you a fix either. So the verdict is, are EVs becoming cheaper? And go for it, Les. The answer is no. And really that's not planning on happening anytime soon. So for those people, the bit that really annoys me about this space is that there are folks out there, including state governments in this country, who say price parity with internal combustion engines at purchase price, not total cost of ownership, purchase price parity by 2024. There is no way that's going to happen, and anybody who thinks that's going to happen, I'll just wait until 2024, is being held out of the market for no real reason. It's really quite annoying. Any questions on prices?
Any of the other cheap Chinese brands that are meant to be coming, like BYD?
So, start me on the Dolphin, eh? Well, I'll believe it when we see a right-hand drive one built anywhere in the world. That has not yet happened. Might happen. And then, so how much is it going to be? This car here, when you have a look at it against the Chinese price, before, when you really tax adjust it, it should be about $32,000, and it's being launched here for $45,000. So there's obviously a margin there, and some, EV tax, I would call it. What's to say the Dolphin, which should be around the 15, 17K mark, if you do the numbers, that kind of ballpark, high teens, doesn't turn out to be 35 for a car that's quite small and limited and city-like. So maybe. And then outside of that, we haven't really got any other Chinese brands that are really going to provide other models. There are plenty of Chinese brands out there that are selling to Europe and other places, but we're not going to see them. Yes, mate.
You may cover it later, but what about Nissan? Is it the Atto 3?
No, that's the BYD Atto 3.
Oh, that's it.
So the Nissan Nissan Aria, that's going to sit up here. When you have a look at the US price, it's like $46,000 US. That's mid-range Model 3 money, like long-range Model 3 money. So it's not cheap. It is not a Nissan Leaf replacement. And then if we pop to the next slide, so we're going to go on a little journey. We're going to go on a manufacturing journey. This is my very poor attempt at a kind of a window into all the vehicles that are being built around the world at the moment. So, it's quite animated, so we'll go through some bits and pieces. So all the things that are holding back the amount of vehicles being built in the world are things like factories that are being delayed. We're seeing some stories in China at the moment. Manufacturing of batteries is not at the pace that they'd like it to be, and so they've got to supply cars. OEMs are slow to market. Toyota, where are you? Hello. And other component availability, which is affecting lots of vehicles. So, you talked about chips being missing and in certain packs not being available. That's sort of really impacting the whole entire market. And the other one that's going is ships. So right now, if you want to get a vehicle out of China to Australia, you have to go and beg for a spot on Tesla's ship. It's the only ships that are coming out of China. Tesla have bought them all up. They end up with about 10% of the space that's for other people. And so, things like some of those, the EC11 van, I was speaking to Peter Bananos, who does the EC11 van. He's like the last person to get a spot after MG get their spots and after Polestar get their spots and everybody else get their spots. So ships to Australia are a bit of a challenge. But when those vehicles are coming out, we have a look at where they're going out to the world, where are they all going? And so all those vehicles by any measure, whether it's actual volume or market share or whichever way you want to look at it, they're all going to the markets with certain conditions and they're not coming to us. And so if you hit it again for me, some of the key things that are aligned in those markets that are getting vehicles, including our brothers and sisters over the ditch, they have fuel efficiency standards, which means manufacturers have to bring their cars to the country, otherwise they're going to get a fine. That's why Europe's got all the cars. And there's other things that you're starting to see overseas. You know, you can't drive in, or you can drive into London with an EV and not get charged £15 a day. That's a good enough reason to buy an EV, and that's part of the reason why the UK is going a bit strong at the moment. Other tax incentives are helping them there. And even, you know, today I think it was Jaguar Land Rover and it was Ford and Volvo both came out and advocated for a European 2035 ICE ban. Internal combustion engine ban. So there's continuing to see this kind of, you know, we'll bring all the cars here, and poor old Australia just keeps throwing money into vehicles that we're going to get a few of anyway. So if we go to the next slide and take that concept a little bit further, this not only deals with the number of vehicles that we got, but also the models that we get. So I imported the Honda E because we're not going to get it in Australia because Honda's not going to bring one, and I wanted one. So that's an example, and we've seen other people bringing, you know, vehicles that you can't get. You know, there's plenty of imported Leafs in the car park and so on to try and get more vehicles into the market. And so this issue plays out with models, brands, and also obviously actual volumes of vehicles. So if we go again there, Les. So as we build demand, we're also building this encouragement for more demand. And if you go again for me, and in some ways, the last thing we need is more demand. Because actually at the moment, it's somewhere between 6 and 10 times more demand than supply. And so if we continue to throw more money at, we'll throw $3,500 on the nose of a car in Western Australia, on a finite number of cars that don't need the money. So actually incentives are money down the hole at the moment. And it's a shame, but that's the reality, because everybody who was going to buy an EV was probably going to buy an EV anyway. And what we need to be doing is taking whatever effort, time, money, discussion we want and shifting it up to the supply end and and fighting for our share in the world's market of the finite number of vehicles that there are. But if we have a think about some of the other things, let's go once more, and I'll turn it to you because I've been talking for too long. What are the things that we should be doing to drive us, or to secure us more supply? What else do you think that Australia could do, we could do? Local manufacturing, absolutely. If we can control our own supply chain, that's a possibility. Standards, yep, standards and fines. So it's not the standards so much. Yes, you've got to make sure your vehicles don't emit more than this on average. But if you don't tie a reasonable fine to it, the Kiwis have done a really good job recently of having what they call a fee bait. So if you buy a Ranger, you pay about 5,000 or 6,000 Kiwi dollars more to register that car. But you go and buy a, Tesla, Ioniq, Polestar, whatever, you get about $5,000 or $6,000 off. And so we're robbing from the polluters and giving to the greener cars. And so that fee bait balance, and it all goes into a pot, and basically it's zero for the government. Like, it really doesn't cost them anything. It's just tipping the balance a little bit. Pretty clever.
That completely negates the argument of why should my taxes pay for somebody to buy a new car?
Yeah.
EV conversions.
Oh, conversions. That'll fix the volume. No, I mean, look, there's definitely something in it. It's expensive though. It's generally it's a flight of passion.
That's why I need the subsidy.
That's why you want a subsidy. Subsidise my passion, hobby. You had a thought?
I was going to say, going back on the Ioniq, is it another Zoe in Australia, or is it dead globally?
Actually, I suspect it's a Zoe. I'd have to go back to the digging and dig down into it. I saw the Australian news, but so the Renault Zoe, one of the biggest selling EVs in Europe. well, it still is one of the biggest selling EVs in Europe, and in Germany, partly because of subsidies, but also in France. It's still the biggest selling EV in France. It is. It's simple. I'll go and get the sales figures. The reality there is they pulled it out of Australia because, one, selling 50 or 60 is actually more painful than selling none. And then separate to that is every time they sell 50 or 60 more into Europe, they get about 2,000, 3,000 euros less fine, so it's more money in the pocket. And that's the same with all the manufacturers. The Ioniq, I believe they're still going to make it for other markets, even if it's only for a home market. Uber's in Korea, but until then, we're not going to see much more volume. And to be honest, we're probably not going to see many more shipments than we've already had. So they've turned it off there, but actually in effect they've probably turned it off about now.
What about being able to buy your EV on it, going to superannuation?
Oh, there you go. Delve into super. I think super should stay where it is. Just give us one more flick there, Les, and the sort of things that you guys absolutely nailed. It wasn't a test, but were internationally competitive regulations to ensure Australian supply. Find the manufacturers. If they don't bring them, incentivise them if they do. Feed bait, European style, or what they call cafe style fines. And then local manufacturing, and it's a really interesting one. Look, we used to build as many as 80% of our vehicles way back in the the 50s, and then sort of went on for 20 and 30% and whatever through the 70s and 80s, and we all sort of grew up through that stuff. And the problem is that there's an inertia behind that. For every car, you need a wiring harness, and for every wiring harness, you need the connector that goes on the wiring harness and the wires themselves, and you need some people to put them together. And you work your way up and I used to work at a manufacturer in the UK, and I've worked in vehicle manufacturing and design over the years. The inertia, generally for every one person on a factory line, there's about 7 or 8 people in the supply chain, and so to develop that whole setup is a challenge, and so it would require a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and a lot of focus, government focus, industry focus. Everybody would have to go, right, this is a direction we're going to go, and we're going to get behind a number of manufacturers, and we're going to build a supply base that supports them, and so on and so forth. So I'm keen to see that happen, but it is some inertia. And then you've got the battery element. So if you were just building internal combustion engine cars 20 years ago, it's not as hard as building EVs today. You need a battery factory as well, and so I would love to see in part of that process of moving towards Australian manufacturing for vehicles. I'd actually like to see a battery manufacturing arrangement such that we're building batteries that could go into home storage, commercial industrial storage, EVs, motorbikes. I don't care where they go, but ultimately we're building cells. Pick a size, 2170 or something like that, pick a chemistry, LFP or something like that, and then just build them, and then the offtake for whatever the outcome can be. I'd love to see that, and I don't think you should bother with the cars until you've done the battery, or until you've got the batteries on the way. And obviously we've got all the minerals and the metals and so on. We've just got to learn how to turn them into something useful rather than just dig them up. But I wanted to take you on that journey tonight. Who's buying what? Where's all the cheap ones? And the big elephant in the room around EVs, which is supply. Everybody talks about we need incentives. The first thing I say is, no, we don't. I even say, people, we need more chargers. No, we don't. This is the problem that we have to fix. Otherwise, we're going to be, trickling around, 20, 30, 40,000 cars a year in a market that's 1 million cars. Just pop to the last slide. For those who haven't seen me and my colleague Mark sometimes coming up here, we're EV consultants. We do this every day of the week. We do it for government and corporates and all sorts, and in pretty much every facet of the decarbonisation of transport. So I've got all this information on tap. We did say that we were going to do light commercial vehicles at some stage. Some stuff's come out recently. We will do a light commercial vehicle deep dive, but unfortunately it's all going to be looking forward. There's a couple of vans around. All the utes are in the future. God knows when they'll come, and to the point that I just mentioned, God knows when they'll come to Australia. But we'll do that. And if at any stage you've got any topics, because sometimes I'm scratching my head, hey John, what should we talk about this week? if you've got any topics that you'd like to delve into or you'd like to go back over that we did a couple of years ago or a year ago, then please let me know. Any other questions on any of these topics or more? Yes, sir.
What are values looking for range capability of the cars?
We can have a look at range capability.
No, but in your experience, what's the sweet spot for people?
Oh, it's all about use case. I have a 200 kilometre EV and a 360-ish kilometre, 400 kilometre EV. I love my 200 kilometre EV and I don't need any more out of it. I'm going to go and drive the Great Ocean Road in my 380k EV in a couple of weeks' time. Where's the sweet spot? You know, range is everything, but at the same time, I think more and more we're starting to see you can have too much and you can be carrying around too much, I think, cost, but also weight and so on. I almost, in my life, I don't need anything more, in my own personal movement, I don't need anything more than my 200k Honda. My family likes the concept of having a nearly 400k car. But I think it matters, and having sold Teslas and talked to people about all their different use cases, there are very, very many different use cases for people, and everybody's different. I think what everybody hangs on to is the one big trip. I'm talking to a friend the other day. But I just do this 1,100 kilometre trip every now and again. So I couldn't possibly have an EV. It's like, cool, fly, hire one, hire a car. Like seriously, when you're doing something that's so edge case, I want to go to Fraser Island, I'm going to go and drive to Fraser Island and I'm going to get a Prado and I'm going to hire a Prado and go and do it. You know, deal with the edge case with an edge solution, deal with the main case with a good EV. That's kind of my thought there.
Topic, Nathan?
Yes, Jen.
Transport and electrification of public transport.
Electrification of public transport. I am fortunately, deeply involved in that at the moment. It's a very, very busy time in my life in that space. Look, globally, we're seeing every PT organisation somewhere between dipping their toe and pushing all the chips in to the electrification of buses. Let's call it buses, you know, really what we're talking about. Trains are almost already electric, you know, so the other PT arrangement is buses. 99.99% of bus activity in an urban environment can be easily serviced with a battery electric bus. Hydrogen buses are a waste of time. They're not required, they're far too expensive, they're not providing any added value. Electric buses will do the job. So, and here in Queensland, there will be another launch of an electric bus this week, or a bunch of electric buses this week, and there will be more coming over the next while. They've committed already to 50 buses that will all go online over the course of the next 18 months as they're being delivered. I'm involved in all of those, and then beyond that, they've said every new bus from 2025 will be electric in southeast Queensland, and every bus from 2030 in Queensland will be zero emissions. But all add that, and that was talked about 18 months ago. I think they'll go further than that as we get closer. But that was the flag in the stand about 18 months ago.
How are they going to be charging them?
With a plug. So you do it all at a depot. All the charging for electric buses, all that's required is charge them when they're stopped at the depot and go and do your job. Europe started doing what they call pantograph or inverted pantograph charging. Most Europeans are starting to go away from that now. It's darned expensive. It requires furniture, what they call furniture. It requires a charger out and about. It requires civil works to happen in an area that they don't own, so there's a land access issue there. And doing this work this afternoon, you don't need it. So usually quite a slow charge overnight and a fast opportunity charge to suck the solar from the grid and from wherever else you're getting it during the day. results in more than capable charging, and a bus of around 400 kilowatt hours for most Australian activity is about right, possibly smaller, but that ballpark.
I was speaking at work lately, her husband worked for a sun bus and got to be part of the trial. Everyone's like, oh, talking about it. They all loved it. And the same as us here, they said they were all amazed at how we were 5 or 6 drivers on the same routes. There was one guy who used to drive on the war or something efficient. He got back to 50%, and everyone else was way down close to 10% on the same route. So, like, that guy had no problem doing the route, didn't drive.
Yeah.
It was just cool.
Maybe not quite that much variation, but I've seen the data on that bus. You're seeing a lot of difference between drivers, you are, and when you have a look at what other, and I've just been working on a project, and I can't say too much about it, but we're looking at the different reasons for variation across a whole lot of time and a number of buses and routes. We're just looking at what are the things that make a difference to consumption, and it's almost all driver. Even things like air conditioning is a bit, but not much, but we also found wheel alignment. So tracking on a vehicle actually made a 15% difference. So it was quite a lot. So it's important. But, the same thing happens in a diesel. They just don't care how much diesel they burn, right? So there's a lot more energy focus, which is good because that's what we love. There's a lot more energy focus going on in electric buses because it's new and scary, and also it means something if they have usually a 700 or 800k range on the tank on a bus, even a route bus here in the city. You'll never get anywhere near that. So that was the thing. Anyway, we prattled along. You had a question, sir. Yeah, so Andre's outside. We can have a look at it later, anybody who hasn't seen it. So I imported it probably nearly 9 months ago now, and I've done about 7,000 Ks in it. It was landed here in the early 60,000s, so about 62 or something like that it cost me. Struggle to do that again right now because what I bought the vehicle at as a newish used car, it was an ex-demo, what I bought the car at, you couldn't get one for about £3,000 or £4,000 until about £3,000 or £4,000 more than what I paid. So it would be difficult to replace. I hope nothing goes wrong with it and I don't crash it or anything like that. So, but yeah, it's early 60s. And I think if take for instance back to what we talked about before, if Honda decided to bring 300 of those to Australia, 360, I don't know, 30 a month, whatever it is. If they decided to bring that many cars to Australia and sold them at 65 or 70 grand, the amount of people that talk to me about mine, they'd sell them in a flash. And in a market where there's even less and less availability, and I didn't buy a Tesla because it's not a Tesla, and there's so many people I've heard that. It's right. So, why did I buy that? Lots of reasons, but it was also not another Tesla. And so even if brands decided to come in with very modest volumes of vehicles, 350 or whatever, that's about how many Nissan Leafs were sold last year. So, yeah, I've talked long enough because it's now gone off for a second. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Just for those of you that are new, we normally break and just have a social chat, and there are a lot of new people here, so come and say hello, talk about any stuff you'd like. We normally have tea and coffee. Les will get that organised. My chief clicker will get that organised. Yeah, come and ask me any questions that you'd like. Ask me how many times it took me to drive from Redcliffe to Oakey and back. I'd like to discuss that. So, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll break now, and thank you to the speakers and Wayne for bringing in the car. Let's go and check it out.